different actors have different qualities, but I think what's essential is to be brave and to embrace being vulnerable, because an actor who's not willing to be vulnerable will never affect an audience.
I think it's someone who is curious. They have to be curious. They have to be sensitive. They have to have empathy. That's always bandied around, that word, but it's so true.
And some of the best actors I've known have been very shy people who would never, reveal anything about themselves. But there is something about being a character that allows them to sort of express things that they otherwise couldn't. It's kind of a safe place, if you like, being on stage, because no one can it's not personal, but you get to use everything that's personal about you.
You can do something spontaneously that looks really good, but can you do it the next time, and the next time, and the next time? Can you make something look natural that is seemingly unnatural over and over and over again? And I think training gives the actor the ability to do that. So it sort of it allows them to use their technique to do what they can already do quite well. Because I think most people that train to be actors they've already got something that is driving them towards being an actor. But everything in their training, it's like their toolkit.
It's an individual and particular creative thing that's happening to that actor, which means that there's no formula that you can teach. There's no prescription of how to do it. Because if you do that, you end up in an anti-creative environment and churning out a load of clones who all do the same thing. The material we expose them to is there for a reason. I mean, different writers, different playwrights bring different demands to the actor, and they get to learn a lot about themselves by approaching Ibsen, for instance, followed by Tennessee. I mean, the requirements are completely different. I love Ibsen because it's about what festers within, and it's about things that are not spoken or can't be spoken because they're all obsessed with what society imposes, and so much of Ibsen is inner life, which is why it's a good text to introduce early on, because they have to get involved with what is inside, which is always the most important thing for an actor. What's on the page is a percentage of what the actor has to bring. The inner life is everything. And I love Ibsen for that. When you're dealing with other texts like Tennessee, which is just open-hearted passion, and it's very raw, and it's very epic, and it's beautiful. And I always remember that quote when we're doing Tennessee. It's an opera quote. What is it? It's that they say, in life when someone stabs you, you bleed. But in opera you sing, and Tennessee is just like that. It's just so raw. And what he has in common with Shakespeare, actually, is they both write with the rhythm of emotion. And I love that about Tennessee and Shakespeare, because if you've learnt one of those speeches, one of those texts with either of those writers, you will never, ever be able to unlearn them.
An actor needs a voice that's strong and clear and expressive. They also need a voice that's responsive to their imagination and to the demands of a text. And you also need to develop strength and stamina to sustain long rehearsal periods, or if you're lucky enough to be in a run of plays, you may be doing 8 shows a week with weekday matinees. And so you need to build up the strength to sustain speaking on stage for a long time, and also in all kinds of performance spaces. Like a small studio theatre needs less breath, less projection, but of course a theatre like the Olivier or the Old Vic will need more energy in terms of breath and projection. And another thing that we have to do also is to explore how to express every possible kind of human emotion in a safe way and also in an honest way. The writer wants his words or her words to be understood and heard and responded to, and the audience want to be able to hear and understand and to respond to the words and hopefully be changed maybe by the performance.
Christian's classes are a bit like sort of an oasis of calm in the maelstrom of being at drama school, really. He knows everything there is to know about using your voice effectively, about looking after your voice, and all the physicality to do with that as well. But having said all that about the calmness and stuff, like, Christian is on it at all times, so you can't get anything past him. He will certainly pull you up if you're not doing something right, which is absolutely fantastic.
We're training actors. We're training people to imaginatively become other people, you know, and be able to place themselves in their shoes in a very deep and personal and empathic way. So movement class, and I say to all my students, movement class is acting class. It's all acting class. Whether you're doing yoga or Elizabethan dance or love and effort actions or animal studies, I'm looking at you as an actor and I'm training you as an actor.
Everything in their training, it's like their toolkit. They can go back to it. They can use exercises from movement to find character. They have to observe people really well, so they have to understand how movement, how our physicality is so much about how we're feeling today, who we are, our history. And as human beings, we do that all the time. But if you're studying a play, you've only got the words, and you have to try and recreate it from the words. So you're using your physical self to try and sort of enter the world of the play. And so it's really important that actors can sort of free their bodies to do that.
And so animal studies is really, I think, the most an actor is ever going to be asked to transform.
And so you're entering this world that is really different, but interestingly, really close, quite frighteningly close to what human beings are like. And it can sort of teach you about what it's like to be a human. And it can also challenge you physically, mentally, emotionally, instinctively, to use your physicality and your instincts in a way that you haven't been allowed to before. Because as human beings, we go through life with lots of things we tell ourselves we mustn't do. But other animals don't necessarily do that as much as we do.
It's hard. It's down on your knuckles being a chimpanzee and a gorilla, you know, it's out in the park, you know, swinging on the monkey bars, it's getting muddy like a hippo, it's difficult and it's challenging in lots of different ways for students, but it's thrilling as well, and every journey we go on with the students through an animal study is a brilliant one and a learning journey for us all, and I love it, and the students love it. And any actor you talk to professionally who's trained in a drama school will be able to tell you and remember very, very well the animal that they did and the animal that they loved.
When I trained to be a movement teacher, I'd never come across this before, and it became my favourite lesson, because I sort of, you know, with Barbara Caister, I trained to be a movement teacher, and I used to love the period dance, and I think it's because it's another world that you enter. If you're, you know, you go back in history, if you don't wear the clothes of those people, you imagine that you're wearing those clothes. You move differently, you stand differently, the etiquette is slightly different. So you're in this world that is kind of other than you, and you're also learning to do something that we all love, because human beings have danced from the beginning of time.
Marcel, I loved Marcel's classes, absolutely wonderful. Particular highlights were animal studies and period dance. I just love that with every exercise that we did with Marcel in movement and working on physicality.
What Marcel and Jen both teach is stuff that you can do every day, stuff that I do every day, and certainly before an audition when I'm preparing for a role.
I really, really liked working with Jen. I think some of my favourite classes were her yoga classes in the second term, because it kind of taught you a lot about kind of learning to look after yourself, because it is such a rigorous but wonderful training.
You know, theatre is to move, amuse, affect. It's sometimes revolt. It doesn't matter what, but it has to be there for the person watching it. And I think we are all human animals, and that's what, you know, we know when we're being lied to, and we know when we're being patronised. We've all been in audiences where the people on stage are having more fun than you are. And you will never affect an audience by being fake. And I'm obsessed with what organs do, because that's what animals pick up on. That's what makes you laugh. That's what makes you cry. It's not the words themselves, it's the way in which you say them. Theatre is wonderful, and without those things in place, without being able to affect an audience, whether in a theatre or on screen, which is then a different thing because you're at the hands of editors and continuity people, it's far more difficult, I think. Without that, it's a pointless and very trivial pursuit. And who would want to spend their lives doing something trivial that didn't mean anything? So that's what it's for me. And that's the litmus test. If your audience aren't affected, then you haven't done the job.
Trudy teaches you that it's the words on the page are actually only a very small part of it, and that there's so much more, between the words, underneath the words, and actually it's so much of it has got to come from, well, pretty much everything has got to come from within.
Trudy will see what you have within you, and then it's for you to try and find that and bring that out. So she really nurtures the actor in that way, which I think is fantastic. And the other thing is, I just loved working with Trudy on everything, because even when it's not your scene and you're not actually participating directly, just watching and listening to her, working with other actors, you learn so much. It's just an absolute masterclass every time.
I absolutely loved being able to work with people of all different backgrounds, ages, people from all different walks of life. I think we had, the youngest was 18, I believe, when we started, and the oldest turned 60 in the first year. When you're on stage with someone who's 30, 40 years older than you, you're not just getting their talent, you're getting their life experience as well that they put into a character.
A range of ages, which is wonderful, because you end up with the younger people feeding from the older people and vice versa. And every year is different. There is a collective identity within a year, which is so important for training, because it changes, but people sort of evolve together, and that melting pot of old and young and lawyers, policemen, in some cases prisoners, all working together and allowing themselves to support each other when they're being asked to do things and take risks and be vulnerable and being cast against type, and they're all in it together. It's a wonderful, wonderful melting pot.
I've taught journalists, I've taught priests, I've taught business people. That's what's made my job so interesting for the last 25 years.
We're trying, surely, to look at the world we live in through theatre and through drama, and to be presenting that world in a heightened way to people, And if they only see one set of people or one class of people, then it's not true. It's just not true. And I think all the work that's being done now to make that, happen is about time, really.
I've not experienced that anywhere else than we've had at the Law School through many years, and what we are going to continue at the school. It's very important to have the right group of people.
For me, it was absolutely vital, because I didn't actually start training until I was right old age of 46. So I had been a secondary school teacher, I'd done all sorts of different professional jobs, and I'd always desperately wanted to go to drama school. So for me, the only viable option at the point I was at in my life was to be able to work during the day.
It's actually great to have a real world job alongside your studies, because you're spending your time in your imagination in a very kind of, in some ways, cocooned environment at drama school. And so to be able to go into the real world and work, and then to come to drama school in the evenings, and to bring the outside world into your work, as it were, is I think it's good. It keeps you in touch with reality, which is important for an actor, especially when you're training. If you're already watching this video, you know you want to do it. You've got nothing to lose. Just go for it.
I would say to anybody who's thinking about drama school, Absolutely, sign up and do it. You will not regret it. No matter what happens, you'll learn stuff about yourself that you didn't know before, and it may be the start of a fantastic journey and a great new career.
If you're looking for a training that allows you to finance it by working alongside, this is definitely for you. If you're looking for a training which is rigorous and not compromising, this is for you. If you're looking for a training that will make you industry ready, this is for you.